how's it going? It's Sam Frost here, back with some more digital marketing advice, and in today's video we're answering a common question, and that's how much does Google charge per click on Google Ads? So Google Ads, formerly known as Google AdWords, and perhaps more commonly still known as Google AdWords, is a advertising platform that allows you to advertise on Google search results. Now there's also more to it these days. There's the display network, YouTube ads, app install ads, all those kind of things. But for now we're focusing on the conventional AdWords bit that everyone kind of knows, and that's those text ads that show up when you search in Google. Now, how much does Google charge per click on these ads? Well, there are actually a few different factors that go into determining the click cost. So one of the key things to look at really at a high level is the competitiveness of the niche or industry you're in. So if you think about a niche industry vertical, whatever you want to call it, like insurance or personal injury law, those kind of things, plastic surgery, all that kind of stuff that have really quite big costs for the client. So if you're anyone who's gone to say a lawyer will know that generally the bill you get is rather large at the end, or anyone who's been to a surgeon, plastic surgeon will be able to tell you the same thing. Basically, if you're in a competitive niche where the potential lifetime value or job value of a customer is really high, you're probably going to find higher cost per click. So things like insurance, law, all those kind of areas will generally have higher cost per click than perhaps other niches where the value is lower. So if you look at something like a local area, advertising for takeaway coffee, for example, well, the potential value of a click is so much lower because what's a takeaway coffee going to cost? $2, $3, $4 depending on where you live, maybe $5, if it's some sort of special coffee. But something like a legal retainer for a lawyer, that could be into the thousands and thousands of dollars, or a plastic surgery referral, that could be thousands and thousands of dollars. So in more competitive industries, and especially in industries where the value per customer or the value per lead has the potential to be much higher, you're generally going to pay a higher cost per click. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the video description to some of the highest cost per click industries, and you can get a feel for whether you're playing in one of those spaces and what you might need to expect. Another thing to bear in mind as well is that geography plays a factor. So if we took something that is really competitive, like personal injury attorney, for example, that's one of those keywords, the classic examples of very expensive cost per click keywords in Google Ads. If you took personal injury attorney, it's probably going to be more competitive somewhere like New York City versus, say, a small town in a sparsely populated state, for example. Same, in New Zealand where I live, if I was searching for, even something like a local service business, so, emergency plumber Auckland, that's probably going to be a lot more competitive than something like emergency plumber Timaru, which is a much smaller town. So basically, you've got to look at competition from an industry and geography level and combine those together, as well as that potential customer value, and those factors, those kind of industry competition metrics, they factor heavily into the cost per click. But it's not the only piece of the puzzle. There's also something beyond that, and that's really your presence and kind of, way of advertising on Google's system. So this has a big controlling factor in how much you pay per click to Google as well. So if you have really good advertising, so you've got ad copy that's really relevant to the keyword or search the user's making, if you've got great landing page experience, if you're getting good click-through rates, all those kind of things, then your cost per click may be lower than another advertiser, and that's because Google is going to give you basically a better ad rank. Your quality score is going to be higher because you're going to have a better user experience, and your cost per click may therefore reduce because Google's going to then show your ad more frequently. You'll get more clicks. Google makes more money. Instead of, say, making $5 per click on one click, they're better off to charge you $3.50 per click and get you 2 clicks, right? They're still making more money from that because what's the actual cost of them serving up a click? It's basically nothing beyond the server infrastructure and kind of development time they have to pay for anyway. So ultimately, Google wants you to get more clicks at a slightly lower cost. Obviously, if they could charge you an even bigger amount and keep the click volume the same or raise it, well, that changes the story once again. A bit like if a business could sell you the same amount of product at a higher price, of course they're going to do that. But you do need to bear in mind your advertising quality and the impact that has on your quality scores, your ad rank. Without getting too technical, I'll leave some links in the video description that go into a bit more detail about ad rank and quality score. What I find is that people tend to get a little bit confused and kind of befuddled by this. It's better just to think about this high-level principle of making your advertising as relevant and as good quality as possible. So the reason this system came to be is in the early days of Google Ads. Basically, the system was entirely based in terms of who got a particular ranking for a particular keyword in the ad section on how much you were willing to pay. And what that could lead to was scenarios in which there might be an inferior quality ad for an inferior quality business. The ad experience wasn't very good, and that still showed up right at the top of Google in the ad rankings because that particular advertiser was willing to pay more. Now, how much you're willing to pay per click is also another factor. It's sort of the third piece of the puzzle. It factors into your ad rank, along with your quality score metrics, which are more about the advertising relevance and the advertising quality that I discussed before. But what you're willing to pay per click is not the only piece of the puzzle. Some people think that basically whoever is willing to pay the most is always going to show up number one, but that's not necessarily true. Obviously, all things being equal, if you're willing to pay Google more, you're probably going to get a better position, which is why having that understanding of customer lifetime value and lead value and all those kind of things is so critical if you want to be really successful with Google Ads. And that's also why if you look at businesses or niches like insurance, for example, you might sit there and go, well, how do these guys pay 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 a click in some cases and make a profit on this? Well, they know the metrics or the sort of formulas they're working to. They know if they can get 10 clicks at $25 each, well, that's that 10 clicks is going to turn into one lead. That's $250 a lead, and at their average conversion rate and customer lifetime value, well, a lead is actually worth, say, $500, so they're doubling their money. So if you know that kind of formula or you're able to calculate it, it makes it much easier to kind of work backwards from your cost per click and then actually say, right, is this costing me too much, or am I actually getting a really good deal? Even at a $50 cost per click, if you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling your money, it's actually quite a good return on investment, really, especially if you've got a high profit product. So do bear that in mind. The cost per click, it's not always a case of trying to get the lowest cost per click. It's trying to get a cost per click that allows you to promote in a profitable manner, and that's something that some of these more competitive businesses or advertisers in these more competitive spaces tend to understand better, in my opinion. So to recap, what constitutes your cost per click, what determines how much you pay Google per click in Google Ads, there are really three key factors. The first is the competitiveness of your industry or vertical, however you want to call it, your niche, and also the location you're trying to advertise in. So more competitive niches, industries, verticals, they are going to require you to pay more per click, especially if you're in a even more competitive physical location, so your big cities, those kind of places. The next factor is your quality score metrics. So that's how good your ad copy is, how relevant your ad copy is to your user searches, to your keywords, whether you're using things like ad extensions, what the landing page experience is like, all those kind of factors that are basically Google Ads best practice. They will factor into your quality score and therefore factor into your ad rank and therefore factor into how much you pay per click. And the final piece is how much you're willing to pay as well. All things being equal, if you're willing to pay Google more, you'll probably get a higher ranking, but also a higher cost per click, obviously. So yeah, that's a basic explanation of how much Google charges per click. In my opinion, you should do a couple of things. One is just look for benchmarks in your industry. As I said earlier, I'll leave some links under the video description that will give some additional resources you can consult on this. And then another thing to do is to look, as I mentioned, at your sort of profitability metrics. What cost per click do you actually need to achieve to make your advertising profitable based off your customer lifetime value, your lead value, all those kind of things. And if you're not measuring that, how can you get yourself to the point where you are measuring that and able to determine it? Because as I said, if you can pay $20 per click, but turn that $20 into $50 of profit reliably, well, that's a really good deal in my opinion. And then you can work to improve from there. And on that note, the other thing is check what your average cost per click is, say, for the history of your Google advertising to date, and then say, right, what could I do to improve that? Could I improve my quality score? Go and check your quality score metrics. What's your landing page experience like? What's your ad relevance like? Are you using all the available extensions? All those kind of things. So use those best practice Google Ads techniques to improve your performance and potentially reduce your cost per click. So yeah, I hope you found that video helpful. Please do like if you're watching this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. I've got tons more digital marketing advice to come. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.